Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said in a US television interview that his country was moving steadily closer to normalizing relations with Israel. The statement has now evoked a strong reaction from Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi, who called any normalization between Saudi and Israel as a betrayal of the people of Palestine. When asked to characterize talks aimed at longtime foes, Israel and Saudi Arabia reaching a landmark agreement to open diplomatic relations, Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said in a US television interview that his country was moving steadily closer to normalizing relations with Israel.
There is approach from President Biden administration to get to that point. For us, the Palestinian issue is very important. We need to solve that part, and we have a good negotiations continue. Till now, we gotta see where it will go. We hope that it will reach a place that it will ease the life of the Palestinians and get Israel back, as a player in Middle East.
In response, Iranian President Raisi has accused Saudi Arabia of betraying the Palestinians by seeking to normalize relations with Israel. All this took place in the backdrop of a meeting between US President Joe Biden and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He opened the meeting by saying that America's relationship with Israel was ironclad, further adding that they would discuss some of the hard issues, including checks and balances, a reference to ongoing tensions over the Israeli leader's judicial reform efforts.
We're working on a lot more together. Today, we're going to discuss some of the hard issues, and that is upholding democratic values that lie at the heart of our partnership, including checks and balances in our systems, and preserving a path to a negotiated two-state solution, and ensuring that Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon. Because even where we have some differences, my commitment to Israel, as you know, is ironclad. I think without Israel, there's not a Jew in the world that's secure. I think Israel is essential. And I look forward to discussing all of this with you and working together with your team to fulfill those.
The Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu stressed on common goals in his opening remarks. He said that under Biden's leadership as the president, they can forge a historic peace deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia, further adding that he would uphold democratic values despite his proposed changes to Israel's judicial system.
I think that under your leadership, Mr. President, we can forge a historic peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And I think such a peace would go a long way, first, to advance the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict, achieve reconciliation between the Islamic world and the Jewish state, and advance a genuine peace between Israel and the Palestinians. This is something within our reach.
A U.S. broker deal between Saudi and Israel would then be seen as a big win for Washington, which is currently looking for possible ways to counter China's influence in West Asia. Back in March this year, Riyadh and Tehran had surprised Washington by announcing the re-establishment of diplomatic ties in China's capital, a major diplomatic win for Beijing. These new developments between Saudi and Israel seem to have thrown a spanner in China's plans for the region. And for more details, we are now being joined by our correspondent Jody Cohen from Renana. Jody, thanks for joining us. We've heard some optimistic statements on the prospects of a Saudi-Israel normalization over the past few hours. What more can you tell us about the latest?
Hi, Priyanka. So as you said, the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said to US media that every day they're getting closer to normalization with Israel. Now, these are rare public remarks in English on the subject of normalization, and that's certainly being seen as a positive statement. Now, the US Assistant Secretary of State for the Near East Affairs, Barbara Leaf, said that there's a long and winding road ahead towards normalization, and a senior US official said the deal would be historic, but that all leaders would have to do some very hard things to get there. Now, the US, we know, wants Saudi Arabia to move away from China and Russia. Saudi Arabia wants a defense pact, arms deals, and support for a civilian nuclear energy program from the US, and Palestinian concessions from Israel. And Israel sees this normalization as a way to end the Arab-Israeli conflict and potentially, ultimately, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict too. Now, a US official said that Netanyahu knows he'll have to do some very hard things on the Palestinian front. It's not clear if some in the coalition would agree, but Netanyahu has said that the Palestinian issue won't be an obstacle to peace. And we're hearing that the focus could be on economic aid. I think it's important to note that Mohammed bin Salman talked about improving Palestinian livelihoods. He didn't say securing a Palestinian state. And after the Biden-Netanyahu meeting, a senior Israeli official said that the two leaders had agreed to move forward with working groups, and the focus would be on how to advance the deal, not whether to.
Right. Prime Minister Netanyahu is also going to be addressing the UNGA on Friday. What can we expect from that speech? Will we hear anything new? That's a big question.
So he's expected to talk about three areas. Number one, Iran. When he was leaving Tel Aviv at the airport, in his comments, he said his main focus would be on Iran's nuclear program and regional aggression. And in his meeting with Biden, he talked also about his support for the Iranian people. Now, the second subject he's expected to address is the potential for normalization with Saudi Arabia. He's also expected to talk about the India, Middle East, Europe corridor in that context as well. And thirdly, he's expected to talk about democracy. Again, in his meeting with Biden, he said Israel won't abandon democracy, and that's in response to the large-scale protests we've seen against the judicial reform proposals. Perhaps also he might talk about a couple of other subjects. Number one, I would say, would be artificial intelligence. The first meeting he had when he landed in California was with Elon Musk, and they talked about AI. And we know that he would like Israel to be a world leader in artificial intelligence, like it is seen to be in cybersecurity. And the last thing I would say he might address is actually the UN itself. In his meeting with Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he accused the UN of baseless criticism of the Jewish state. Now, that's because the General Assembly passed more resolutions critical of Israel than against all other countries combined in 2022. And he urged the UN to condemn, quote, Iranian subversion and Palestinian terrorism. But he's speaking on Friday morning in New York local time, so we'll have to wait and see what's on his on the agenda there.
Right, Jody, thanks so much for all those updates, and thanks for joining us on WION at this hour. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.